Hi everyone, Sarah Pacaro here with Rewrite Your Life Rapid Training. And I talk a lot about healing from narcissistic abuse. And narcissistic abuse is, there's many kinds of abuse within this. And today we're going to talk specifically about being emotionally abused, because that is what leaves oftentimes the deepest scars, even deeper scars than physical abuse. So what is emotional abuse? How to know if you are being emotionally abused? It's very tricky because emotional abuse is often very covert and very insidious. So many people who are victims of emotional abuse are not even aware they're being abused or that they're in a toxic relationship, because you often wonder, is it me, or is it maybe they're just in a bad day? And you often feel that you're making excuses for this because it's difficult to compare. There are other types of abuse that are way more obvious, like physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse. But emotional abuse is sometimes a little trickier to detect because emotional abuse is so unrecognized. It is sometimes even hard to tell if you're being emotionally abused. So you may often wonder, is he or she insulting me right now? Like, that was kind of like an underhanded comment that they just made towards me. So, hi, Marlene. So you start to get that weird feeling like, well, that was really sarcastic. And oftentimes the abuser will say, I was just kidding. God, you're so sensitive. You can't even take a joke. And so you often find yourself questioning, was that an insult or was that a compliment? It kind of feels like a backhanded compliment. And victims of this type of abuse often feel very confused. They don't really know what's going on. In fact, one way to tell if you're being emotionally abused is because you always feel confused around that person. It's not easy flowing, and if they do say sorry, it doesn't seem genuine, because sorry is backed up by changed behavior. So this person's behavior never changes. They just continue to insult you and then make you feel bad, like they were just kidding and it's your fault, you didn't get it, you're so sensitive. So emotional abusers, you will notice, have extremely poor boundaries. They do not respect the personhood of the other person. They will make decisions for the other partner because they do not see that person as autonomous or able to make their own decisions. So they will often tell you how you should feel or how you should react or respond to a certain situation. So the emotional abuser is oblivious to the wants and needs of the other person, and they're absolutely not considered at all. What that person wants is the only consideration, and they put that on you. So you'll notice an emotional abuser is very controlling. They dole out any arbitrary rules. The rules dictate anything from the most mundane to the most serious of issues. And you just feel like, wow, like I never get to speak up. I never get to say anything. It's usually the most unimportant aspects of the life that the controller likes to control. Maybe like seemingly small things, but those things add up over time and really weigh on you. They have lead you to this point of just massively being confused and like not even knowing who you are anymore, and just questioning who you are, feeling like you're just the shell of this person now. This type of abuse is that the abuser believes, we talk about this all the time, that they are superior to the victim. The victim is down here, and that it is their responsibility to make the decisions and to be in charge. So they will never let you feel like you can make a decision. And even if you do, even if you try to step up and use your voice, you get berated for it and just completely demeaned in regards to this. So in some cases, controlling behavior is more than just being bossy. You've all had this experience with people who are just bossy, and that's rude, of course. But most controllers hurt the other person intentionally. They do this, especially this is true for sociopaths, psychopaths. You know, there's a whole barrage and array of people on the narcissistic spectrum. These are ones who relish in other people's pain. So here are some behaviors. I'm going to list different behaviors, very typical ones that cause emotional abuse. And you may notice that you've experienced this as well if you've been in a relationship with an emotionally abusive person. So check off, like just do a mental check of which ones your loved one displays. If you check off many of these items, you may be in trouble. and you need to break free from that abuser and then really work on healing from within yourself, because this person may cause you to feel these ways, but there's a root cause of this, why you engaged and stayed in a relationship with the person who made you feel this way. So the first one is blaming. If they're always blaming you for things, accusing, they're always like making this accusation that you did this, failing to apologize after they hurt you, even if you tell them they hurt you, just dismissing it like whatever, and they don't apologize, or if they do, it's very insincere and there's no changed action or behavior, just blatantly just being rude to you. Or they're the master of the double standard. Oh, you can't go do it, but of course it's fine if they go do it. If they're neglectful, if they're using scapegoating, yelling, raging, if they give you the silent treatment, they stop talking to you, if they start to stonewall you, if they're just completely indifferent, name calling, using things, this is a big one, using things that you told them in confidence against you. Or playing trump cards, for example. You made this big mistake as an excuse in order to inhibit poor behavior towards you. Forever they do this, so they pull out this trump card every single time. If they're mocking you, swearing at you, implying things, this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde personality, which you may see with these people quite often. Put downs, hostility, not following through, not taking responsibility. Here's another big one, using your own children against you, controlling behaviors, telling you what to do or how to think. And obviously this is not an exhaustive list, but these are examples that are involved with emotionally abusive people. So here are how victims of emotional abuse manage these relationships. Over time, victims of emotional abuse lose their sense of intuition. Again, going back to that feeling hopeless, helpless, feeling lost, feeling like you don't know who you are, feeling like you're a shell of a person. They have no idea how to trust their intuition or be themselves. Then they become so far off from being self-referencing. Our intuition, that gut feeling that we have, is there for a reason, is to guide you, to keep you safe, to protect you. And with all of these things that you've experienced in that list that I just shared, you tune out from that. You don't even know. It feels like it's turned on all the time, which most likely it is, because that's a trauma response. And we've talked about that before, the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze trauma response, that's always turned on. So you are not tuned in to your intuition. Everything a victim does is evaluated through this internal filter, assessing how they believe their abuser will respond. That's that feeling of walking on eggshells all the time. I don't know, like what mood are they going to be in? And then that determines how you are with this person. It's hard to tell sometimes. I know that this is the exhaustive list, if you've been a victim of emotional abuse or not. And so here are some common experiences of those who have been subjected to this type of covert treatment, because it's not always in your face. Sometimes it happens progressively, and in the beginning there's the love bombing phase, and then they slowly start to sneak in all of these behaviors, so sometimes you're not even aware of it while it's happening. But if you've had these experiences, most likely you're in a toxic relationship and you need to get out and learn to protect yourself from further abuse. So that list, as you walk on eggshells when you're around this person, you make excuses for their behavior. And it's like, well, I love them. You experience abuse amnesia. So what is abuse amnesia? That is, whenever your loved one has done something hurtful for you, you tend to minimize it and its impact on you, to the point where you even forget that something bad ever happened. So that is why it's so important to keep a journal and document, especially after you leave the relationship. This abuse amnesia will kick in, and then when they start to love bombing and the hoovering, it's so easy to get sucked back into that toxic relationship. So abuse amnesia is very real, so keep a journal of your experience with them. If you found that you have lost your sense of self-worth and self-value, this is one of the very first things that we get to the root cause of and work on. If you find that you're living in fear, I have so many clients that are like, Sarah, I'm just constantly like, I'm just looking over my shoulder all the time. They feel like they have to get cameras installed, and I definitely recommend that if your abuser, it does tend to take it to that next level and go to the court, get orders of protection, injunctions of harassment set in place, and protect yourself. But you shouldn't have to live in that fear. Life is too short. It's not designed that. You often, this is a huge one, struggle with anxiety, like massive anxiety, PTSD, CPTSD symptoms. You become accustomed to not being heard or listened to and feeling like you don't matter, you don't belong, and there's really no purpose for you in this world. You lose your sense of yourself. You become afraid to express your opinion because you are deeply, deeply afraid of being ridiculed or starting an argument. So you're a people pleaser and you just say yes to everything. That's the last thing you want to do, is start an argument. And you have the right to be heard and express yourself. Everyone does. But obviously not at the extent that toxic people will go to. And you often are in a relationship, yet you feel alone. You feel happy when that person's not there. You experience common feelings of intimidation, humiliation. You have financial insecurity. This was a massive one for me. I was financially dependent on my ex. So establishing a plan to get to yourself so that even if you're not making millions of dollars, you have enough to get by and you're not financially dependent on that person. There is such a thing called financial PTSD. And over time, you begin to discover that you are completely losing every aspect of yourself, and you have become, again, a shell of who you used to be. So the main problem with emotional abuse, you've heard this phrase, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Oh my God, can that phrase be more untrue? The main problem with emotional abuse is that it's often discounted and minimized for all those reasons. Oh, I was kidding, I was joking. You're so sensitive, you can't take a joke. So the phrase sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me is so untrue. What other people say becomes your inner voice. This happens when you're a child. What your parents say to you becomes your inner voice. If they belittle you, degrade you, put you down, compare you to others, if you were the scapegoat or the black sheep of the family, those words become your inner voice, that you're not good enough, that you're unworthy and deserving of love, you're never going to get what it is you truly want. And the problem with this saying is that it's psychological and emotional abuse. The only way to heal from this is to get to the root cause of that. Obviously, get out of the relationship with the person who is emotionally abusing you, and then work on protecting yourself, establishing healthy boundaries, regaining your confidence, your belief in your self-worth by getting to the root cause of what's blocking you from that anyways. So it takes time, of course. Healing does not happen overnight, but it does start with establishing healthy boundaries and really getting in touch with yourself again, healing from within. So I hope that this helps you. Emotional abuse is extremely toxic and extremely overlooked and leads to so many things, anxiety, depression, suicide, and obviously with everything going on in the world today, last thing we need is emotional abuse. There's enough going on out there. So please like, comment, and share if this helps you or anyone that you know. I do hope that it does. That's my goal, is to help you guys educate and heal yourselves along your journey to breaking free from these toxic relationships. Thank you guys.